Very good evening, my dear friends. Other day we completed preliminary discussion on the letters of credit, and today I will deal with the modus operandi and different types and the other information thereon on these particular letters of credit. The definition part has been already completed. Friends, the modus operandi, how these letters of credit is operated, we see that normally when a contract of sale is concluded by the parties. I mean, here that means a contract sale has been entered into and the parties started working upon it. They agree upon a letter of credit being issued as the modus of payment. Letter of credit as the modus of payment. And the applicant requests his bank to issue a letter of credit. Then the issuing bank finds out about the credit worthiness of the applicant and it is satisfied and issues a letter of credit. Subsequently, the beneficiary, that is for whom the money has to be paid, on the receipt of the letter of credit will check the terms to ensure that it matches with the contractual terms and then will either arrange for shipment of the goods or demand an amendment to the letter of credit as the case may be, depends upon the circumstances of the case, so that it would comply with the terms of the contract. Then, friends, the letter of credit could be limited by time, validity of the credit, the date of shipment, and the time of presenting the documents. And the normal practice is that once the goods have been shipped, the beneficiary will present the set of requested documents to the nominated bank. The bank will check the documents, and if they are found in compliance in terms of the letter of credit, the banker has to honor the terms of LOC and pay the beneficiary without any demur. If the documents, suppose, don't comply with the terms of LOC, then they are called discrepant. That is technically called discrepant. Then the bank will inform the beneficiary about the discrepancy and offer appropriate options depending upon the circumstances of each case. If the discrepancies are minor, then they are curable, then they have to be cured. But as per the business practice, in the event there, in fact, the documents cannot be supplied on time, duly corrected, then they have to be forwarded to the issuing bank in trust, hoping that the applicant will accept the documents. This method could be used only as a last resort, and it all depends upon the trade practices thereon, the banking practices thereon prevailing in that particular area. Then, as I told you, this is called forwarded in trust to remove the payment security of the LOC. Then, today, as an alternative method, some banks also may make the offer by telex for approval or the modern electronic medium of email, which is now much in vogue. This is possible where the nominated bank holds the documents but sends a message to the issuing bank to accept the discrepancies. This method is considered to be more secure than sending the documents in trust. Today, electronic media has come into picture, vogue, and then the IT Act, Information Technology Act, so that obviously, in fact, this particular second method, alternative method, is much preferable. Then, in case of issuing letter of credit, the various types of documents normally submitted, we have to verify. What are they? Generally, bills of exchange, invoices, bill of lading, airway bill, roadway receipts like the lorry receipts, railway receipts, cargo receipts, license, embassy documents, insurance documents, and any other document as per terms and conditions of the letter of credit thereon. Which is the law that is applicable to the letters of credit? This is the most important aspect, friends. In India, basically the Indian Contract Act applies. Maybe other countries may have its own codes. But globally, it is the Contract Act of the appropriate country applies. Then various legislations narrated in earlier lessons relation to banking business. I have narrated several lessons. They are all applicable to LOC as it is one of the prime business activities of international banking. Then, friends, the letters of credit are also subject to the governance under the rules of International Chamber of Commerce, presently called UCP 600. UCP 600. Internationally, some countries have created special statutes regarding the LOC, as I already told you. For example, United States of America in fact, adopted Article 5 of Uniform Commercial Code, UCP. These statutes are enforced to work with the rules of practice, including UCP 600. But UCP 600 is not the law. The parties to the contract must include them in their contracts, otherwise, it won't have any applicability. Then, friends, with this, we conclude our discussion on the modus operandi and then the law that applies to the letters of credit. Then, friends, we will now see what are different kinds of letters of credit. There are different kinds, like one is the travelers' letters of credit. They are called the travelers within the country or abroad. Carrying huge cash is since very risky. Prefer this particular type of travelers' letters of credit. And then, this November 2016 demonetization also, has given way for this kind of things. And then, that way, the features are as follows. Number one, the letter of credit is issued by a bank on its own branch or correspondent bank situated within the country or abroad also. It's a very global practice. If it is addressed to more than one bank, then it is called a circular letter of credit. Then the amount of payment to be made to the holder of LOC is specified. The procedure for payment and the recording is stipulated. Then along with the LOC, a letter of identification of the holder is also issued. The applicant for LOC has to deposit the requisite amount with the issuing bank or make such alternative arrangement as per the norms of the bank. The applicant, instead of depositing money with the issuing banker, may furnish a guarantee for issuing LOC. Then, based on that, the LOC is issued, which is called guarantee letter of credit. Now, the travelers' LOCs are again different kinds. One is circular notes. I am talking of different types, in which one is traveler's letter of credit. Under traveler's letter of credit, there are 5 different kinds again. One is circular notes. I have already explained that. These are all similar to checks, but with a specified denomination printed thereon. The holder will encash these notes by rendering them to the concerned bank. The holder gets full value. Then the second one is circular checks. These checks are issued in different colors, which indicate the maximum amounts up to which the checks may be drawn. The banks send these checks to their branches and correspondent banks abroad. The foreign banks or the branches in foreign countries sell these checks to persons intending to visit the country of the issuing bank. Subsequently, they send to the issuing bank the details of the sale with the proceeds. The buyer of the circular check would receive payment from any branch, agency, or the head of the issuing bank. After making payment of the check, the issuing banker debits the account of the banker who sold the check. Friends, another type of letters of this kind of traveler's letter of credit, traveler's checks. These checks are issued for the convenience of traveling public, and I need not to say much. Everybody knows about it. We are all using it. And these checks are issued with specified denomination printed on them, and the buyer is required to sign on this check at the time of its issue, and the issuing banker confirms the signature. At the time of receiving payment, the buyer has to sign again at the specified place on the traveler's checks, and the 2 signatures must be matched. The advantage here is that if the check is lost, it is very difficult for the finder to receive payment by impersonation. It can be cancelled at any time. Then, friends, the other type, one is travelers, letter of credit, in which the 2 types I told you. Then one is the circular, and then another is traveler's checks. Circular notes, circular checks, and traveler's check. Three. Then other one is the letters of commercial credit. They are all issued in commercial transactions wherein the issuing bank makes the payment to the beneficiary directly. Then in several cases, the exporters are not personally acquainted with the importers. In such case, the exporters will have to bear high risk for payment. To avoid such a kind of catastrophe, the exporters ask the importers to arrange a letter of commercial credit from the importers' banks in favor of the exporters. Friends, they are all, in fact, again, different types again here also. That they would be called documented letter of credit, clean letter of credit, fixed letter of credit, revolving letters of credit, revocable and irrevocable letters of credit, confirmed and unconfirmed letter of credit, without recourse letters of credit, transferable and non-transferable letters of credit, back-to-back letters of credit, red clause letters of credit, and so on. And these types and kinds may be adopted based on the banking practice of that particular country, as the case may be. Now, friends, the most important aspect here is that what is the liability and right of the issuing banker with regard to the letter of credit? The liability of the issuing banker in case of letter of credit was narrated by the Supreme Court of India in Tarapur and Company, Madras. Tarapur and Company, Madras versus Messrs. Shavo Tracto Export, Moscow, and another. Friends, this was reported in All India Reporter, AR 1970, SC Supreme Court 891 page. In this case, it was held that a letter of credit is an independent, unqualified contract of sale or underlying transactions. And the autonomy of an irrevocable letter of credit is entitled to protection. The banker issuing an irrevocable letter of credit gives a firm undertaking to the exporter that the bill drawn in terms of the letter of credit will be honored. This commitment is subject to the fulfillment of the conditions laid in the letter of credit itself. If, on the other hand, the exporter supplies inferior goods and equipments and violates the particular agreement terms with the importer, the liability of issuing banker remains unaffected. However, this principle is not applicable in case where the seller commits any fraud. In fact, it goes without saying, fraud vitiates all types of transactions. Once the seller is paid the LOC amount, the issuing banker gets the right to claim payment from the buyer of the goods. This is how the combination goes on. The buyer of goods remain liable to pay the issuing banker, even if the ship carrying the goods sinks and the issue insurance policy is in the joint name of the buyer and the banker. Then what are the risks of LOC? The LOC carries several risks, and a shrewd banking practice can prevent the occurrence of these risks. Some of the risks. One, the risks out of the government policy. The policy of the government of different countries may prohibit or restrict. It depends upon the circumstances of each and every case. The second one is most important thing today we are facing COVID, force majeure. In this force majeure, the contract may be frustrated due to factors like natural disasters like the COVID, the armed conflicts, war among nations and like ones. The third one is risks arising out of legal action. The performance may be stalled due to any injunction of court of law. Fourth one, the risks arising out of fraud, where I told you fraud vitiates the transactions. The payment may be obtained by committing fraud, then the payment may be obtained for non-existent entity. Definitely, that would be an important issue for matter to be taken to court of law and then take appropriate civil and criminal action. Factors then, lastly, risks arising out of social factors, social and then other economical and political, where social, political, economical and other financial issues may bring risk to the performance of LOC. Same is the case sometimes with bank guarantees. I already dealt elaborately the case law thereon. In spite of all these particular risks, today the global banking community relies much upon the letters of credit. They are in good practice, they are in vogue. And then I advise students to study the UCP 600. That is the most important thing. I have been Indian and foreign laws also in this regard. Especially UCP 600 is very important, as I have been advocating that aspect. That is the International Chamber of Commerce framed certain rules which are called UCP 600. Okay. And then, as I already told you, this UCP 600 should be made as part and parcel of the contractual obligations, because it can't be a binding law. That is, it's not a UN charter which would be binding on the member countries. So that is the reason why Article 5 of Uniform Commercial Code, UCP means Uniform Commercial Code of International Chamber of Commerce. UCP 600 is called in fact, UCP 600 is called Uniform Commercial Code 600. So, in fact, this is the rules framed by the International Chamber of Commerce. And the United States made out a law taking the Article 5 of Uniform Commercial Code, which is otherwise called the UCP 600. So, in this particular regard, I advise students to download it from the website and then read it and ultimately prepare a good answer in this regard, friends. On this particular documents, in fact, you can make out a very good answer in the examination point of view. Bank guarantees, letters of credit, definitely you can get one good question. And then you can definitely give a very elaborate answer, as I have covered various case laws also. So with this, friends, I conclude my discussion on the letters of credit. And I think in further sessions, we will see about the Reserve Bank of India and then other Banking Regulation Act. These are the two legislations. Then we will switch over to the last unit, Negotiable Instruments Act. So thank you, my dear friends. Thank you very much. We will meet again. Good night. Thank you.